Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. So what am I doing today? Today I am going to be doing an original tag created by myself and by Jack from Spread Book Joy. So this tag is in celebration and in honor of our month-long readathon, rather. I was going to say read-along yet again. So our month-long readathon called Picture This, where we are celebrating picture books and how picture books can be enjoyed by anyone of any age and the joy that that picture books bring to our lives. So with our original tag, Jack and I, we took 10 popular titles, popular picture book titles, and we used those titles to help us create some prompts about books and reading. So, if you are new here to my channel, then hi, I'm Shelly, and I love books and reading of all kinds and of all sorts, including picture books. And if you like that kind of thing, books, reading, books of all kinds, then I would encourage you to subscribe. Okay, so now let's get into the meat of the video. The first book that inspired us was Love You Forever by Robert Munsch. Munsch? I'm not really sure. Interestingly, I'll put a picture of I'll Love You Forever. We do own this book, but I didn't dig it out. But I Love You Forever, or Love You Forever, is the story of a little boy growing up, and he does, all the things that little children do, causing havoc in the house and making a huge mess. And then in the evenings, after this child has been a child and been kind of obnoxious, the mother, regardless of this child's age, will go sneak into her child's bedroom and rock her baby, who's sometimes not a baby anymore, and she sings a song, I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as you're living, my baby you'll be. And so she does this even until her child is an adult, which is kind of polarizing, I've realized, as when you work with picture books and have worked in a setting where you're discussing picture books with people, you realize that people take books in different ways. And Love You Forever, most people, it brings them to tears. When I read this book, I remember my mother singing me the little song in the book to a tune that she made up, which is very touching to me. I know people who will look at the book and just start crying because of the emotional response that this book will evoke. But then I've met this other camp of people that is a lot smaller than the first camp that loves this book. And this other camp of people think the book is creepy, including people I really love and respect. But I've been told that this book is creepy because parents should not be rocking their children even until adulthood. But it's really a metaphor. In my opinion, the book is a metaphor for how much parents will always love their children, and we always hope that that love will be reciprocated. Okay, so the question after that long preamble about the book, but I had to share, y'all. I had to share. Okay, the question to this. Name a book you imagine you'll love forever. So name a book you'll imagine you'll love forever. For me, I have two books here. They're both nonfiction. I am a nonfiction lover. And the first one I read this year, and it is A Room of One's Own. I'm still thinking about this book, y'all. This is by Virginia Woolf. I forget when it was published, but A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, which talks about women's roles in society and why it is important to be a female writer or to support female writers in particular. And this is magic, y'all. This is magic. I can't imagine a day ever coming where I would dislike this book. The other book that I absolutely love, and I'm ready for it to be a reread, is Night by Eli Vitzell, which talks about his survival story in a concentration camp as a Jew during World War II. And it really digs in on the themes of hope and humanity and what makes us human, and the defining moments in our life where we can choose humanity or we can choose something else. Really powerful and beautiful book. Prompt 2, Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, Very, Very Bad Day by Judith Viorst. The question that goes with this is, which books or comforting things do you turn to when you are having a bad day? So I go for books like this. when I'm having a bad day. I read Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin and Hobbes is a comic strip that ran in the 80s and 90s, I believe, by Bill Watterson, who had just a really good sense of humor and a bent towards philosophy and discussing the philosophical things in our lives. But the conversations are between this little boy, Calvin, and his imaginary yet real-life tiger, Hobbes. Calvin tends to be the more dramatic one, let's say, and Hobbes tends to be the more down-to-earth one, the more quiet and sensible one. And I love Calvin and Hobbes. Another thing that I turn to when I'm having a bad day, not thing, but another book that I turn to when I'm having a difficult period in my life is our hymnals. I love hymns. I grew up playing hymns on the piano and singing them all throughout my childhood and young adult life. And when I'm having a particularly bad slump where I'm just days of not feeling great or just going through a rough time, then I will pick up my Trinity hymnal, which is the hymnal that I grew up singing from, and I will open it up to familiar songs, and I will read and I will sing the songs by myself in my house to my children. It's something that I really love doing. I didn't talk about the things that I turn to when I'm looking to be comforted. I often turn to a very fancy cup of coffee. This is not a fancy cup of coffee, but sometimes if I'm having a bad day, I will treat myself to something that is extra delicious with whipped cream and a lot of sugar in it. I also just like little sweet treats. I have a mega sweet tooth, and so I'm just all about treating myself with something sweet. Harry also cheers me up on a bad day. Question number 3, The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. And the question is, which book series character sparked your hunger for reading? And for me, that's pretty easy. The book that I remember reading over and over and over as I navigate with one hand was Matilda by Roald Dahl. I just loved this book as a kid. I love Matilda being this voracious reader and that she's put into a precarious and sinister situation by attending a school that is being mismanaged by a terrible principal, and the connection she makes with her teacher and her magical powers. And oops, I'm gonna set you down, okay, baby? And all of the things that Matilda has, I just remember really loving Roald Dahl's books growing up, and Matilda was my favorite and one that I definitely, most likely, built my early reading years off of. I just really love this book. Prompt 4, Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss, and the question that goes along with it is, what's the most unusual book you've ever read? So that would definitely go to a book that I read last year for Nonfiction November, and it is The Temple of Silence. This is a book about the artist Herbert Crowley. The subtitle is His Forgotten Works and Worlds. He wasn't super prolific, but he did create quite a bit of work, and this book celebrates his work and is asking readers and folks out there to remember his work. So I think it's unusual because it is so large and it reads like somebody who's investigating Herbert Crowley's life and talking you through his research process, which was really interesting and unusual for me at the time. Though now, at this point, I've read another book quite like that, that takes you through the research process of a particular artist, and that was Ghost in the Throat by Dorian Nigadiofa. That is also similar to this book structurally, in that both authors take you down the road of their research path as they've gotten quite obsessed with a particular artist or writer. Prompt 5, Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. The question that was inspired by this book is, what is your favorite book featuring the natural world? That's easy. That would be my book, Nature Palette. And this is all about the colors that you would see in the natural world. Comparisons of the color to the natural world. Prompt 7 has 3 questions inspired by Goodnight Moon by Margaret Wise Brown, which is also illustrated by Clement Hurd. And the question 1 that goes with this is, do you read at bedtime? Yes, I do. I read on my Kindle. Often I read on my Kindle until I fall asleep, but I do read in the evenings and all the way up until bedtime on most evenings. The second question is, do you read to someone else at bedtime? I do read to my children, but often it's not quite at bedtime. We read often after school or in the afternoons or on the weekends. And then the final question is, did anyone ever read to you at bedtime? Similar to the routine that I have with my own children, though I'm just putting the connection together, my father, my mother and my father read to me, but my father read to us, my siblings and I. There are 5 of us, so it feels like a big group. Every morning we would read the Bible. Every single morning, that's how we started our mornings off. And then in the evenings, sometimes my dad would have a history book that he would want to read to us. And so sometimes in the evening at dinner time or just after dinner, we would sit down and read that history book, and my father would read it aloud to us. And there were some really great books that he read to us. One of them was Corrie ten Boom's The Hiding Place, and I still remember that book today. Prompt 7 is Guess How Much I Love You, written by Sam McBratney. And the question is, who had the biggest influence on you as a reader? That's hard. So I was homeschooled as a child. I was somebody who didn't attend traditional public education until I was 14 years old. And so my mom taught me how to read. And so she definitely gets the trophy for somebody who influenced my reading. My dad was always a consistent reader. He still is a very consistent reader. Both my parents are. And he'll get through quite a few books in a year. My grandfather, though, was the king of reading. This is what he did in his time. He did 2 things, mostly. He loved stamp collecting and he loved reading. And so he was a huge supporter and encourager of reading, starting from the top down. So he influenced his children to read. A lot of his children are consistent or avid readers, my dad being one of them. And then that really kind of trickled down into his grandchildren. So I think of my grandfather influencing me, my mom, and my dad. And I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I've been interested in reading my whole life. So I have like a catalog of people who have considered themselves readers their whole lives, and I think about those readers today. The final prompt is The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. Weirdly, I don't remember reading The Giving Tree until I was an adult, and it made me really, really sad. It's not exactly what I expected. Let me know if you've read The Giving Tree, if you remember it, and your reaction to it, if you remember it. But I really read it like 4 years ago, and I remember being like, I didn't think this book was quite like that. Anyway, so let's get into the questions. Which book or set of books would you give to an emerging reader? Or which book have you given as a gift more than once? Another funny story? I've given this gift. I've given this gift more than once, and that is Bark George by Jules Pfeiffer. This is a funny, quite humorous book. I really love it. Clearly, I've given it as a gift. But the funny thing is that I gave this book to my husband's boss's child. I've given this book to his child twice. I forgot that I gifted it to him like a few years before, and then we went to visit said boss and child, who was adorable and sweet and amazing, and I was like, yay, we're gonna give him Bark George, I'm so excited for him to experience it. And then I am like gifting the book to the child, and his mom is like, you've given us that book before, and I was like, oh, I knew that. I just wanted to make sure that, he had another copy or something. And then I was really embarrassed, and it took me a while to recover. And clearly I remember the story today, probably because this only happened last year. So yeah, so I've given that book more than once. I've given several picture books more than once. I love the book Madeline. I love a lot of the titles that are mentioned here, and often what I like to do for new babies, my gift to new babies is a stack of picture books to begin their reading journey, even in the womb, y'all. Like that's how passionate I am. I'm like, oh, you're still expecting your child. You haven't had the child yet. Well, here's a stack of books to get them started. Yeah, that's me. Anyways, I have a bunch of people to tag, so give me a second while I get my thoughts together. Okay, here is who I'm going to tag. I have a list of people here, and I'm so excited to see all of y'all do this, okay? All y'all. It's my southernness coming out. I want all y'all to do this because I want to know your answers for these questions. Okay, so I have Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Gem of books. Gemma at Gem of Books. Gina at Gina Stanier Books. Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading. Emily of Novell Novels. AJ of AJ Dunn Reads and Writes. Sandy at Miss Reads a Lot. Jolene at Bookworm Adventure Girl. Becky at Teacup the Storyteller. Anne with Anne with a Book. We have Thea with Book Talks with Mrs. Thomas. So her first name is Thea, and it's Book Talks with Mrs. Thomas. Say Kevy. Angie's Book Chatter. Scott and Nell at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. Sorry about that. We have Katrina at Katrina Reads. I haven't seen Katrina post a video in a really long time. So Katrina, if you want to, I'd love to see you do this video as a welcome back to YouTube. We have Elizabeth at Bookins and Books. Berna at Berna's Bookish Adventures. Nikki at Red Dot Reads. Pay at Attention, Mr. Pay Attention. MJ at Reading This Life. Marilyn, the baby boomer booktuber at Marilyn Maya Mendoza. She's so wonderful, y'all. Steve at Steve Donahue, because I know you're gonna say you weren't tagged, but you can't say that now because you're tagged now, okay, Steve? And then David Wiley, my partner in crime. I would love to see you do this tag as well. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye, guys.